Hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. My name is Kelly and I'm a former wedding planner and blogger, and I'm obsessed with weddings. If you're planning a wedding in Ireland, you're in the right place. You're going to learn the tried and tested methods to planning your dream wedding without the added stress. Think of this as your one-stop shop for everything to do with planning your wedding in Ireland, with me, your new wedding planning bestie, and a cup of tea. This is Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. There are 3 groups of people who have to get to your wedding on time. And today, I'm going to be telling you exactly what you can do ahead of time to make sure that no one is running late and that your wedding day plans aren't impacted by that. So first, who are these 3 groups? Group number 1 is your suppliers, but you don't need to worry about them because they're professionals, this is what they do, and they will be at your wedding well before the arrival time that they've agreed with you. So we don't have to worry about group number 1 at all. Group number 2 is the wedding party. So that's you, your partner, and anybody who's being getting ready with you guys, bridesmaids, groomsmen, whoever you've got on your side. That's the wedding party. And then group number 3 is the guests. So today, I'm going to talk to you about groups 2 and 3, the wedding party and the guests, and some really practical things that you can do. And once you put these practical things into place, you're going to have a sense of, just peace of mind where you're not going to have to worry about anybody being late, anybody missing anything, or anyone delaying the proceedings of the day. And then, there's a knock-on effect. So why don't we get started with the wedding party? Now, the main goal here is to get both sides of the wedding party to the ceremony venue on time. So traditionally, half the group will be there first. They'll be at the venue as guests arrive so they can greet everyone. And then the other half will come in a little bit later. That's when the ceremony officially begins, as that half walks down the aisle. So now the timing of when all these groups arrive will be a little bit different, but the principle is still the same. So I'm going to walk you through the principles and things that you can do, and depending on which group you're part of, some of the things that we discuss won't be relevant, but the principles will still be important. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. You're going to create a wedding morning timeline. So you can't wing it. You can't just say, well, it normally takes me about this much time to put my makeup on or this much time to get dressed, and so let's just do that. You really do need to have a plan. And I'm going to walk you through the exact steps to take to make that plan. But once you have that plan in place, you'll know exactly how much time you need to get ready. And then we're going to work our way back from the ceremony starting time to whatever time you need to begin getting ready on the morning of your day. And the idea here is that if you know how much time you need and you create that amount of time with a buffer as well, which we'll talk about a bit later, then everything should flow perfectly and you should be on time. So this is what you do. You start by working out how many bridesmaids you have and how many hairstylists and makeup artists you have. And I highly recommend having this conversation with your hairstylist and your makeup artist because they have a clear idea of the exact makeup look that you and your bridesmaids are each going to have. They also know, the specific hairstyles. They will have done a trial with you, not necessarily with the bridesmaids, but they'll have an estimate of how long each person's hair and makeup will take. You'll know how many hairstylists and makeup artists there are. And so if you've got one group of people helping you get ready, and then you've got the bridesmaids getting ready at the same time as you, that is one equation that you can create. Whereas if you have one makeup artist and one hairstylist, you've got to work out how much time each one will need for each person and add it all up. So you basically need to know how long it's going to take for each bridesmaid to have their hair done, each bridesmaid to have their makeup done, and how long it's going to take for you to have your hair and your makeup done, and then you piece it all together. So that's something you can work out with your hairstylist and your makeup artist based on how many people they will bring with them to help get everybody sorted. Now, let's just say you have 4 bridesmaids and they're getting their hair and makeup done in tandem. So while one of them is getting their hair done, another one's getting the makeup done, for example. And if you have somebody else who's doing your hair and makeup, you will be getting ready at the same time. So effectively, you've got 3 people getting ready at once. So you can work out what that's going to be based on the unique hairstyles that each person will be going for, also based on people's particular skincare needs as well. So let's say, for example, that it works out to be 1 to 2 hours of actual getting ready time. You have that as your basis. And then you don't stop there. You've got to add in any other time-consuming activities. So I mentioned before that on a regular day, you may say, oh, it takes me 2 minutes to get dressed. And it takes me, X amount of time to put my makeup on. Some of you are amazing at doing a full face of makeup in, 5 minutes. But on your wedding day, it's going to take much longer. So while it might take you 2 minutes to get ready and dressed on a normal day, consider how long it's going to take to get buttoned into your wedding dress, and then, putting the veil on perfectly so you don't mess up your hair, but so that it flows perfectly. And then all the other details, putting on your jewelry, spraying on your perfume, putting on your shoes, all of those things will take a little bit longer, and a lot of that may be photographed as well. And so it takes even longer because you want to look good and feel good, and your photographer will be giving you some direction during that time as well. And then you want to think about the time you'll spend posing for photos, and things like giving your bridesmaids gifts or letters, and of course, time to eat and drink. So add up all of those things, how much time you think it'll be, and then add even more time onto it. And then your final step here is to add a buffer. So if you think it's going to take you, for example, 3 hours to get ready and to eat and to pose for pictures, I would say add another hour to that, because what you don't want is to be rushing from one activity to the next on the morning of your wedding. So now, obviously, these numbers are hypothetical because it depends how many bridesmaids you have, how many hairstylists and makeup artists, the specific hairstyles and makeup looks that you're each going for, and of course, what everybody's wearing and how complicated it is to get into the outfits. So these are just hypothetical numbers. But let's say that by doing all the equations, you've worked out that it's going to take 4 hours to get ready with your buffer time. You then start at your ceremony time, and for example, let's say it's 2 p.m. You then work back minus 4 hours, so you're going to need to get started at 10 a.m. at least. So do you see how that works? You work out all the different bits, and then you subtract the time from your ceremony time. Don't forget to factor in travel time as well. So if you are on site, it may mean 10 minutes of walking from your room down to the venue. If you're driving, factor in that time. But all of this is what's going to help you get yourselves to the ceremony location on time by being really practical and really smart and planning ahead. And I have a bonus tip for you before we move on to the guests. The bonus tip is to have somebody who's in the wedding party whose entire role on the morning of the wedding is to make sure that you are on track. You can't leave it up to your hairstylist and your makeup artist. It's not their job to hurry people along. Their job is to make everybody look and feel as amazing as possible. So let them focus on that. And instead, have a bridesmaid or, a sister or mother or somebody who's there already, getting ready on the day, who knows what the timeline is. So if they know that each bridesmaid needs to take 15 minutes to get their hair done, for example, and if they can look at the timeline and say, okay, we've only had 2 bridesmaids get their hair done and it's already taken 45 minutes, we're behind, they can hurry the bridesmaids along and say, listen, you need to be ready to go. You got to be standing next to the chair so that as soon as the bridesmaid is finished, you can hop on and get started. It's not to hurry along the professionals, it's to hurry along the bridal party, because normally they're the ones holding everything up. So put somebody in charge of that and you will feel so much more relaxed. As the bride, you shouldn't actually know what the time is. You shouldn't know if things are running late or on time or anything, because you just need to be getting ready and having the best day of your life. Now let's move on to the next group, which is the guests. Now, if you say on your invitation that the wedding starts at 2 p.m., this is what's going to happen. You're going to have a group of people coming at 1 o'clock because they want to make sure that they get the best seats and that they're not late. They've factored in their own buffer time for transport and parking and all the rest of it. But then you're going to have another group of people. Most of them will arrive at some point before 1:45 because, again, they factored in a little bit of time. They want to make sure that they've got a seat and they're ready to go. But not most people, you will get a lot of people, an embarrassing amount of people who will trickle in at or just after 2 p.m. So this is how you can make sure that everybody is seated and ready for your ceremony start time. And the first thing is to think about the hurdles. So the hurdle might be something very practical like parking. So I recommend that you just make the information very clear ahead of time what the parking situation is. So if you know that the area that you're getting married in if it's a Saturday afternoon and you know that normally it's busy because there's like a rugby stadium nearby and there's often a little bit of traffic, it's helpful to communicate that ahead of time because you might be familiar with the situation, but your guests may not. So communicate with them and say, we recommend leaving a little bit of extra time to travel in because often there's rugby taking place. There'll be plenty of parking. It's a 2-minute walk from the car park to the venue. It's free parking, all that kind of thing. Any information that's helpful to communicate, make sure you get that out. That's what wedding websites are for. And if there's anything else, like for example, limited parking and you'd prefer that people carpool instead, tell guests with enough time so that they can make those travel arrangements. So they're more likely to be on time if they know ahead of time what the hurdles are and what the solution is, and you've made it very clear to them. The second thing you can do is you can have a differentiation between the invitation time and the actual starting time. This is something that I advise couples to do. And what I'm not suggesting is you say, our wedding starts at 2 and you come in at 3, because what you don't want is your guests to be sitting, twiddling their thumbs for an hour or more, waiting for you to come. That's not what we're suggesting. What I'm saying is if you tell people that your ceremony starts at 2, you plan to walk down the aisle at 2:15. And in that buffer time, you make sure that you've welcomed everybody with a drink. It could be something as simple as a glass of lemon water on a hot day. And you make sure that there's some music playing. And if you have welcome booklets or anything with, fun facts about you and your partner or a crossword puzzle that's wedding specific, you've given them something they can do in that little bit of buffer time. But really what you have done is you've created space for people to come in, be ready, and then to have a little bit of waiting time. So when you come in, they've actually been anticipating your arrival for a little bit. And then the final tip is a bonus tip that I saw Olivia Romeo share on Instagram, which is include the word sharp on your invitation so that your guests know you mean business. And I think that's really clever because you're telling them, this is not a flexible time. We're starting at 2 p.m. sharp. And then, of course, you start a little bit later and they're not going to mind. So hopefully this helps you to get all your groups of people to the wedding on time. You can start your day as planned with no hiccups, no hurdles, no delays, and of course, peace of mind. Thank you for listening today. The Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast is produced by me, Kelly, and mixed, mastered, and edited by Glenn Hartman. For more wedding planning tips, advice, checklists, and more, visit weddingsonline.ie.